says alert level 2 could be raised in Metro Manila to curb the spread of COVID transmission, but this is still subject to careful evaluation from the IATF.
Our vaccines, our primary series, the first and the second dose, have been affected by this Omicron variant, meaning the immunity that we have received from our primary series has been reduced to lower numbers.
And the Interior Department remains firm that residents of Cebu Province are still required to wear face masks outdoors.
Well, ang guidance pa rin po ni Secretary Anyo ay huwag kilalanin ang executive order na inisyo ni Governor Gwen Garcia at binigyan po ng kautusan at direktiba pa rin ng ating kapulisan na kumprontahin o bigyan ng advice yung ating mga kababayan dyan sa Cebu Province na hindi nakasuot ng face mask na magsuot pa rin ng face mask.
The Health Department says an alert level 2 status for Metro Manila is still possible if COVID-19 cases continue to rise. Some health experts agree to prevent further spread of the virus. What is the current look of the COVID-19 situation in Metro Manila, and for that matter, the entire country? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. Welcome to The Chiefs. Ako po si Robbie Alampay at kasama po natin online Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5. I think Ami Pamintuan is with us as well. She's joining us from Manila. And here in the studio with us, Ed Lingao of One News. Chiefs, happy Monday.
Hello, happy Monday.
Not really happy.
Bakit?
Ating gabi mamaya, meron namang increase eh.
Try to be.
Ikaw naman, last week pa yan eh.
Oh,
Hindi ka na nasanay.
Iba pa yung last week. You know, with last week and this week, diesel has gone up by 11 pesos per liter in the last 2 weeks. Basically, that's what transport groups are looking at.
Tas
11
kanina,
pesos.
kanina I was talking to the spokesperson for Air Asia. Tapos ngayon, pati yung mga domestic travel affected yan. There will be fuel surcharges also passed on also to the consumers. So sabi nila tumutulong naman daw ang Kaab, but hopefully, it doesn't meron silang mga request just to help ease anticipating the problems also. Pero sabi nila, hopefully it doesn't dampen the demand so much, especially as we're trying to reopen the economy and tourism in particular. Diba? Anyway, while we're talking about that, we are of course talking about COVID as well. Again, more than 1,600 new COVID cases from June 6 to 12. That is a rise of about 30% in daily cases. Is this cause for alarm? Let's talk to our guest who's joining us once again. Mukhang madadalas na naman ang usapan natin. Okta Research Fellow, Professor Guido David. Welcome back to The Chiefs, Professor David.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, sir.
Good evening, Robbie, Ed, and Lucy.
Your take on the current numbers. What are you seeing?
Well, Robbie, I think last time I guessed it, sabi ko, we're seeing a very slow increase. But the slow increase is now accelerating a little bit. Ibig sabihin, bumibilis yung pagtaas niya. I'll give you an example. Right now, the 7-day average in Metro Manila is 131 cases. Last week lang, 86. So the 1-week growth rate is now 53%. 50% is a big growth rate. Last week kasi 10% lang. So sabi ko, nothing to be worried about, 10% increase. That's what I said. Pero if it accelerates, then we'll start to be concerned. Now it's accelerating from 10% to 50%. That's a big jump. Kasi 50%, andun na siya sa realm ng mga previous surges. I mean, maybe not as fast, but if you're adding 50% every week, that means your cases are gonna double every week. We could be at 400 cases by the end of June sa Metro Manila. If this trend continues, that would mean, maybe close to 1,000 cases nationwide by end of June. I mean, right now, we're, today we had 386 cases, highest since early April. So definitely there's an increase in cases, not just an uptick now, but it's starting to accelerate.
Sir, can you give us a context
So
of
is
the
this the
numbers?
weak surge? Sorry. Is this the weak surge you were talking about a few days ago, and that it might happen within the next 4 to 5 weeks? Ganyan?
Yeah, well, yeah, we could already consider it a weak surge, but the concern is it might be getting stronger. So maybe we could be looking at something.
What do you mean it's not going to be as weak as? I mean, it's not going to be weak surge. It's going to be a stronger surge, stronger
Well,
than weak surge. Is that the point?
I mean, right now it's still, you can still consider it siguro the start of a weak surge, but yan nga, the concern is it might be getting stronger. So might be getting stronger. So we will have to look at the numbers closely. And that's why it's starting to be a bit of a concern now. Definitely, we have to remind people to practice minimum public health standards, because these are the things that we have at our disposal. We don't want to lock down, syempre, and we don't foresee that there will be a lockdown. Maybe we might escalate the alert level, like the Department of Health is saying, so that's possible. Pero we don't foresee a lockdown. Omicron pa rin naman tayo, so most cases will be mild, but it will still be disruptive sa economy natin.
Sir, let me put it this way, sir. Should we be worried? Kasi when you say na it's accelerating a little bit and a bit of concern, parang we should be worried na hindi eh. You know what I mean? We don't know if we should be concerned, especially concerned, or just a little bit concerned. It's like the frog in the pot eh. Kumukulo ka ng unti-unti, hindi mo laman kung kailangan ng tumalon o i-enjoy mo yung sauna.
Yes, I think in the interest of public safety, if we're in the middle, we should lean towards the more conservative, more cautious approach, which would be, let's take this threat more seriously. Even though sabi ng Octa na, it's a weak surge yung projection, like I said, it could be changing. Kumbaga, if we think of a typhoon, parang mahina lang yung mahina ng hangin, pero bumibilis, we should not take it for granted. Hindi tayo pwedeng, lumalangway pa rin sa dagat with a typhoon that seems to be getting stronger. Projections could be wrong. I mean, right now we're thinking it might be a relatively weak surge compared to the previous ones, but it still could be a surge. I mean, we might not get 40,000 cases like in January, but we could get maybe a few thousand cases. People still get COVID. There will be people who get sick. And sabi ko nga kanina, it's expensive to get hospitalized. If you can even get hospitalized, because I was talking to one of our doctor friends kanina, si Dr. Benjamin Ko. He says na there are hospitals not admitting COVID cases who are relatively mild. Ibig sabihin, yung mga non-ICU cases, hindi tinatanggap sa hospitals ngayon. They only admit ICU cases for COVID.
So what does that mean? That just because they're not admitting, could it be because most of the cases are mild to begin with? So is that cause for alarm, even if the numbers are going up, if most are mild anyway? Is that
sure.
something that should,
Yeah, sure, Lucy. If most cases are mild, and they're not admitting them because they're mild, I mean, it's not going to be overwhelming. It's not going to overwhelm our hospitals, definitely. I mean, we don't foresee that this will overwhelm the hospitals. But at the same time, as we mentioned, there will still be people who are vulnerable to COVID. Those with comorbidities, those seniors, maybe even the healthcare workers. And this will be a disruption at the same time. So, hospitals will not likely to get filled up, pero I think we should still practice, precaution, because we don't want COVID to be spreading. We don't want to have a lockdown either, But at the same time, we can protect our economy by practicing these public health standards. Because when people get sick, it also affects the economy.
Professor, late ang pasok ko ha. Pero tanong ko lang yung accuracy ng data nyo kasi we've been so used to the past months, hindi na nagpapatesting mga tao eh. So yung infection na yan, yung infection rate, posible kaya na much higher than what you are tracking?
Yes, Ami, aside from hindi na nagtetest, I mean, our data, well, they report data every day, but, I mean,
Delayed.
Yeah, it's delayed by 1 week. I mean, we get we get the latest data every day, pero yung detailed data is delayed, and they only report it weekly, which I'm not sure, the reason for that. But you're correct. Definitely, numbers could be higher. Kasi,
Ano kaya yun? Margin of error, ano kaya? Estimate mo.
Usually, our estimate is it could be 10 times higher. So,
Oh dear.
I mean, if it's 300 cases per day sa Philippines, it could be 3,000 already. The positivity rate is increasing, so we know that the numbers are increasing. So it's not just the cases. Even hospital utilization is also increasing. So the numbers are increasing. So we know that there's definitely an increase in cases. I don't think it's considered an uptick anymore because it's continuous. It has been increasing for a month now. Pero yun nga, initially, we were not alarmed kasi ang bagal ng increase. 10%, 10%, 10%. That's very low. Pero ngayon, tumalon na to 50% yung increase compared to the previous week. So now it's changing. The situation could be changing. The texture of this increase is changing. So definitely, we have to be more cautious. So na-mention nga kanina, are we at the alarmed state or andun pa tayo sa kampante pa tayo? I don't think nasa kampante pa tayo. Definitely, we should not be kampante or complacent. Not very alarming, pero it's always better to be on the cautious end. Hindi naman ibig sabihin magla-lockdown tayo or we move now to alert level 2. It could be premature. But at the same time, if the trend continues, ngayon, nasa low risk tayo. We're projecting na by next week, by 1 week, we're already at moderate risk na. I mean, from low risk. So there's definitely an increase in the risk.
But Professor,
Let's talking about
Kampante, on the individual level, maybe even at the level of our households, the reality is people have become more lax. I admit, all of us have slipped back into some bad habits. Some of us have probably forgotten some of the good habits. But that's us on the individual, on the household level. I'm wondering on the systemic level, on the systems level, particularly in your field, your access to data, maraming namuo na mga sistema, di ba? There are a lot of linkages and systems and mechanisms that eventually evolved, coalesced, so that you can have reliable access to data that you can look at. May kampante ba sa level na yon? Or buo pa rin ba yung infrastructure natin to make sure that at least knowledge-wise, data-wise, we are still where we should be?
Well, I think the data is still where, I mean, roughly, even though it's being updated once a week, I think it's still there naman. But meron, we have to admit, or we have to face the facts na the situation is now different from earlier this year. Yung contact tracing natin, it's probably a lot weaker now compared to before. Yung testing natin, although we're still testing significantly in Metro Manila, compared to other regions, it's already down. We're only testing mga 10,000 per day in Metro Manila. During the peak of the surge, we were testing 50,000. It's not a problem in itself kasi I expect the testing numbers to be going up as well. As more cases arise, more people will need to get tested. Pero they go hand in hand, testing and contact tracing. And those are not, they're mainly absent already at this time. Even I know some LGUs are still working hard. And, siguro narinig na rin naman Quezon City had this document na they're on yellow, which means Quezon City is already at moderate risk. while the whole of NCR is at low risk. So they're doing monitoring din naman. But I'm not sure how many LGUs are still really closely monitoring the situation in their areas.
Are you foreseeing a change in policy as far as COVID reporting and COVID monitoring within administration?
Yeah.
But what are you seeing will happen? Because we're now looking at ilang araw na lang, di ba? The new president will take over. And, well, we have yet to see who will take place Secretary Duque. So what are you hearing? I mean, are you expecting any major change in the way COVID is being monitored? And, well, siguro right now.
Yes, Lucy, it's hard for me to say, wala pang na-announce na new Secretary of Health. It would depend a lot on the new team. And from what I'm hearing, I think what we're hearing is that the IATF may be dissolved also. There might not be a need for that with the new administration. So things could be changing, but at the same time, because the systems are also at the LGU level, I think at least locally, they will be retained. Many mayors got reelected and they still have their own teams intact. Pero in terms of the support from the national government, we're not sure if it will be there or if it will change. So there's a lot of questions that arise. Even the approach of the new administration, will they pattern it like yung other countries na they're saying, oh, wala nang, let's just ignore COVID, no test anymore, let's just open everything. I mean, may mga countries na ganun na yung approach nila, even with this spike or uptick in cases or surge in cases. They're taking a newer approach, and we're seeing the situations in COVID cases starting to increase in some countries again. Hindi pa naman malala, but and we know that when this happens, this may produce new variants again. I mean, the cycle's still there. We're hoping our immunity is still robust. We can cope, and I think we can cope with this increase in cases that we're seeing right now. Pero it's hard to predict in what will happen in the future if there's a new variant that's more menacing that arises.
Pero sir, I suppose
actually,
that's part of the question.
Sinasabi ng mga infectious disease expert that our immunity is waning, both natural and from the vaccine. Kaya ang mga nangyayari ngayon, actually, they're tracking what you projected and what the disease experts projected na yun nga, mag-umpisa na yan tumaas at around this time. Dahil nga, because of waning immunity. And in the meantime, merong mga nagsasuggest na alisin na raw yung emergency alert status natin. What do you think of those suggestions?
Well, yung emergency alert status, it will depend on the World Health Organization if they lift that. I don't think we should, move away from what the WHO would be recommending. And you're correct, Ami, the natural immunity, the vaccine immunity, they're all waning. That's why I think we need to use the extra vaccines that we have. Pero even the first booster coverage is still low, around 20% of the population. We could get more people with booster shots. I think we need an information drive of booster shots. I think a lot of people feel that they don't need it because they are already vaccinated. And I don't know about the second booster shots. We could also re-examine that because in some countries, they have allowed it for people over 50 and above. So, they were thinking about that. I'm not sure kung anong direction natin dun.
Pero sir, going back to what you mentioned a while ago, the possibility of the IATF being abolished, I suppose that was also part of the question of Lucy, na given the fact that you might have LGUs having their own systems in place, and enforcing these systems, you will not have uniformity across the board. And the borders are pretty porous among regions and cities and provinces. Diba? So I suppose that falls back to that question na parang the Cebu conundrum. Who do we follow, and can you count on LGUs to enforce what is good for the entire country, not just for their own constituencies?
Right, and that's a good point, Ed. And I think sa NCR naman, there's probably not going to be a big concern kasi most NCR mayors are coordinated naman, and they generally want uniformity in NCR.
Yes, sir. Pero sir, may MMD naman kasi yun, sir. May MMD naman yun. So kahit pa paano nag-meeting yung mga yan.
Right. Pero you're correct na once the IATF is abolished, there will be, it will be completely decentralized, and there will definitely be lack of coordination. Kasi ngayon, Cebu is taking this approach, but the IATF is saying, okay, we're overruling your approach. Without the IATF, wala na ganun. Then it will be whatever the LGU or even the province decides.
I'm just wondering, this is actually a question, I guess, for Father Nikos Riaco, but I was wondering, just in case we've come across other studies or you've had conversations with him. But I think part of yung kumpiyansa and yung pagkakampante ng mga tao is, you hear a lot of people saying, suspecha ko nga ako, nagkaroon na ako eh. Diba? And then it sounds like a reasonable thing that most of us have been exposed, have gotten it. Is there any way to know, are there studies that would actually indicate how much of our population have in fact already been exposed to the virus?
Yeah, we were, Robbie, we're originally planning to have a research study done on that. We can do a serology survey, tinatawag dun. So we take, we administer antibody tests sa random group of people, and then we can check how many, as a percentage, have the antibodies. So we can do that to assess. My guess is just hindi naman wild guess. I tend to think na around 50% of the population got exposed based on yung mga random tests that the DOTR was administering at the time. So that's just an estimate. Maybe up to 50% of the population. But even the natural exposure, there's going to be waning immunity, and there will be breakthrough cases. So hindi tayo dapat maging okay, kunyari ako, I got exposed, or someone got exposed to Omicron. It's possible that they might still get reinfected after a certain period of time pag nag-waning immunity. So that's the concern. They might be very protected within the first few months. Kaya nga malakas yung wall of immunity natin from February to around May because of that natural infection and the protection. Pero if it's starting to wane also, then even if it's the same Omicron, a new subvariant, they might get reinfected with this these BA4 and BA5.
Wala ba mga projections na, are we not studying at least for example, when we finally discover a patient who got the Omicron subvariant B.5, wala bang follow through yun so that we can at least have a database or a baseline data on how this subvariant behaves at least locally, so that we can say, for example, na ito mukhang after we discovered this, medyo nag-shoot up based on the numbers a couple of days later, then we can project from there whether these subvariants are indeed cause for alarm or, at least a basis for saying that we could be experiencing a surge in X number of weeks. Pwede ba yun? Have we begun that at least? Because ang sense nga ng lahat is ang bagal nga ng genome testing natin. We can't even catch up with the number of cases that may actually be happening already based on what we have discovered so far or tested so far. What can you say about that at least? moving
Well-
the data forward. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Lucy, I mean, ever since naman yung genome sequencing natin parang medyo after the fact na lang. And I'm not, pointing fingers na. I mean, we don't have a lot of capacity for genome sequencing. So even before we projected that, the cases were Delta, it was already spreading even before it was confirmed. So parang confirmatory na lang yung genome sequencing.
Yeah,
But to your point about yung Omicron BA4 and BA5, they are taking over in the US. So we know that they're more infectious, and they took over in South Africa. And I think we will see that kind of pattern in many other countries if they're conducting testing and genome sequencing. So that's why I think, initially the projection was a weak surge based on the South Africa experience. It was maybe 1/3 the surge, their previous Omicron surge. And we might have something similar to that. Maybe not 1/3, but we will see. So that's why we are a bit more concerned now than before, because it's starting to accelerate. We thought before malakas pa yung immunity natin, we can manage it, but now maybe it's our wall of immunity is breaking down. So that's a concern. Yeah.
So, paano to? You think we should be more cautious? For example, mag-face-to-face na 100% sa classes and sa transport. Nakita niyo naman dahil nga kulang ang mga sasakyan. Sikip-sikip na talaga sa public transport even while waiting. You think we should be more cautious again?
Well, actually, yeah, I think we should be more cautious. And even if at the minimum yung face mask pa lang, maybe we could, I don't know, it's possible they will reduce capacity sa mga public transportation and establishments. By doing so, we're in effect raising the alert level, or maybe not raising alert level, but reducing capacity. So these are definite possibilities that might happen. I think right now the cases, though increasing, people might be looking at it and saying, okay, 388 cases, that's very manageable. That's true. But once cases reach a certain level, I think there will be more, hindi naman panic, but there will be more urgency to, maybe escalate the alert level, or at least, decrease capacities. And I'm not sure about the face-to-face classes, but at least I know a lot of offices are planning to have, full resumption of office, volume by June 15, kasi maraming work from home na papabalikin na. I was told this, and maybe they could reconsider and iwan mo na sa work from home yung mga iba nilang employees at least.
Okay, Professor Guido David, sir, maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Professor.
Ingat, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doc.
Professor David, of course, from Okta Research. Please stay with us. The Chiefs will be right back.
Welcome back to the Chief Show on One News. Lots of industries reeling from the series of oil price hikes, and the bread-making industry is not spared. Philippine Baking Industry Group President John Lu Coa joins us now. Thank you for talking to us, Mr. Coa, and welcome to the Chiefs.
Good
Good
evening.
evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yes, sir. Well, sir, of course, we've been seeing in the past few months a constriction in the supply of wheat. Although we import most of our wheat from the U.S., kabit-kabit naman po lahat yan with the Ukraine-Russia crisis going on. My question po to you is this, in the past few months po, kamusta ang presyo ng ating tinapay, and moving forward, mukhang tataas po pa po ba?
Yes, good evening. Well, we have been told very early that wheat prices will constantly go up. So we're just really living through that scenario. There is a lot of wheat supply, but it's just that the price is high. So I don't think we will be out of wheat. We'll probably be out of purchasing power more than out of wheat supply.
Okay.
I don't know if that's something we ought to be thankful for. Something. Okay.
I hear a lot about constricting wheat supply. There's no wheat in the market, ergo there's no flour. These are just like logical conclusions, Lucci. But honestly, if you have the money, there is wheat flour in the market. It's just that the price is high. And that our stocks are from the US and Canada and Australia as well. Not really much from Eastern Europe. So there is supply. It's just that there's always this fear that one day countries will become more protective of their wheat assets and probably not share it with the world. Parang hoarding.
Yes, sir.
You have had to increase prices, di ba? Kumusta yung reaction ng mga consumers? How is demand? Has it been affected by the series of price increases, or do consumers understand and just keep buying?
Consumers, of course, react by the very nature of the law of supply and demand. But in absolute terms, it's, say, a peso, 2 pesos, little increases over time, centavos, for example. So in the scheme of things, probably it's not as costly as fuel, and it's food. So a pack of pandesal may go up by 4 pesos. It comes up to be 40 centavos a piece. So in real terms, it's understandable. People seem to still want to buy. It's not really that prohibitive, so to speak. So like in French Baker, we still see people buying. In the supermarkets, I still see our members' breads being sold. Probably it's people just bought less frequently. But of course, we have seen, and I've asked our members in field baking, that there's been a slump in demand since they started to adjust their prices.
Ayun nga po yung tatanong kayo, on the side naman ng mga businessmen, whether it's panaderia yan or anybody involved in the bread industry, ano pong advice nyo?
Oh, advice in terms of...
Para sa mga people in this business who are feeling the dip in the demand, they have their businesses to try to keep up with the times. At the same time, they're getting pressured on all sides, fuel, the price of wheat, and so on, transportation. Anong advice nyo sa mga entrepreneurs who are in this business?
In the case of flour, for a restaurant, for example, if they did their breads, probably they will feel an increase in a bag of flour. I'll give you an example. In August of 2021, it was 690. Today, in 2022, in June, we're still in June, it's about 1,000 pesos.
Oh.
So there's like 60-some%. However, one bag of flour is 25 kilo. If you did a kilo of dough, the effect will not be that big. It's just that for the restaurant people and the business people I know of, it's like when everything goes up, every little single thing counts. And that's the bad thing.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say nga, since tumaas ang presyo ng fuel, no? Of course, all the other ingredients necessarily will go up, right? I mean, it's not just flour, but also sugar and all the other things that go into bread making. What about that? Aren't those costs rising as well?
Yes, in the case of flour, it hits the bakeries, big and small. I'm not denying the fact that it's not painful. I'm just saying that it's this. You know, when you're a small bakery, even for big bakers like us, let's say you use 100 bags of flour. 1 peso would mean 100 pesos. Not a big deal. 10 pesos would mean 1,000 pesos. Not a big deal. Up at 400 pesos. Wow. It becomes a big deal. Even if the impact is small on a per piece basis. Because in the larger picture, you see na grabe, gumagamit tayo ng 1,000 bags of flour. 1 peso, 1,000. 10 peso, 10,000. 100 peso. Wow, that's 100 grand. It's a 3 million a month. It's almost 40 million a year. Wow, you know, that's what makes us really feel scared. If you can't pass on the cost, then be ready to lose your, as a businessman, be ready to lose your working capital.
Well, from your experience with the consumption habits, bread consumption habits of Filipinos, what works better? You increase the prices kapag may ganyang mga inputs are going up, or you make the product smaller? Kasi there's a discussion about that in the past days. Kung ano dapat ang gawin, especially small bakers.
I would advise anybody listening is put on a long-term view. Why make it smaller? People wanted what they're used to it. Like, if I'm a size 34, give me a size 34. If it costs more to make, then I'll pay more. Probably I'll wear 1 pair of pants, but don't give me size 32 if I was 34. Something like that. Give it to me the price I can afford. Then allow me to adjust. Maybe carbs can come from rice, from other sources of starch, fine. But don't make it smaller. Sometimes kasi, you know, people expect making bread is like just putting things together and in 2 hours you have bread. They should understand that there is fermentation involved. There is live yeast bacteria there. These are microbes that take in nutrients from the flour, plus everything else in that beautiful piece of dough. It rises, it bakes, and the volume goes up. And sometimes people tell me, "Oh, Jalo, your pandesal, what happened?" I said, "Come on, friends. Alam mo naman, kung minsan nagmamadali ka, yung bakers, they didn't wait. They didn't allow it to grow. And then, they in a hurry to go home." And they say, then I'd say, "Okay, if you get less than 60 grams, it's my fault. If it's 60 grams, it's not our fault. We're not cheating. If it's more than 60, it's bonus for you." It's the weight, not the size. So if your baker is under cutting or what, weigh it. It should be 25 grams. But that aside, I think it's really not good for bakers to make smaller size. They just increase the price. Imagine mo, gasolina, pwede ba haluan ng tubig or alcohol? Di pwede. It won't be gasoline. So that should be the mindset of all the manufacturers. And this will all pass. This inflation shock will all pass when everything else will settle down eventually. So, baka masira yung brand mo, masira ang image mo, masira yung brand value mo, yung equity ng brand. It's everything to a businessman if the brand stays intact. Right now, it's very easy to explain it in a way that people can understand you. Don't make it smaller. Just adjust the price and make it more tasty. Pasarapin mo pa.
Pero hindi ho ba bumababa ang benta? Kasi syempre, I mean, the market can only bear so much of a hike, right? So my question is, sure, you won't reduce the size, you will increase the price. I'm sure there will be discouraged buyers, right? I'm sure, somehow.
Luchi, systematic risk eh. Hits everybody. Like, everybody's hit, boom. Parang nuclear explosion yan, bang. So, when we're hit, what do? Try to remain standing. So, as a baker, you see that the demand is weakening. So, what do? On certain items that you have better margins, don't increase. In other items that you're just about above break-even point, stay lang muna. For those that really you're losing money. I mean, it's foolish to continue doing it. So they have to adjust. This is a time na tinatawag ng economies, cost push inflation. Wala ka na magagawa. It's like somebody pushing you from behind. What do? If somebody is pushing from behind, you go with them. Otherwise, you get crushed. You get pushed forward. So somehow we have to adjust. Ngayon, businessmen will have to make a decision. What will be my profit objective? How will I pay my loans? How will I pay my people? So again, inward looking, restructuring. Find out how can you do with less people? Can you do it with less fuel? Are you going to use electrics? Whatever. Find a way. Save on resources. Don't waste on resources. Wastage is a big thing in bakery because everything is moving so fast. We have only 12-hour cycle to finish a batch of dough. And if we can cut down on waste, then pass on the savings to our consumers.
Yeah. Mr. Kowa, I know, and I don't want to dilute your message. It's very, very clear. You worry about what you can control, do everything that is within your power, make the hard decisions, and so on, things that you can control. But what about the things that you cannot control? Is there anything that you need from government that you think can, in fact, be addressed?
Thank you. Well, in the case of field baking, we have a product called Pinoy Tasty and Pinoy Pandesal. This is a joint project with DTI and Field Baking together with Philippine Federation of Bakers and Filipino-Chinese Bakery Association. So 10 bakeries, a total of 10 bakeries from Field Baking and the rest of the other 2 plus DTI. We came up with Pinoy Tasty, Pinoy Pandesal. Something that has been going on for the last decade. So this is a subsidized product we put in the supermarket and in the major retail shops. And this has a prescribed price, and we have to clear through DTI whenever we want to adjust the SRP. On other prices, on other private branded goods of bakeries, we're free to move our prices. But for this one, we have to consult DTI. So I
What
just want
about But what about your friendly neighborhood panaderia? I mean, how do you think they're coping?
neighborhood panaderia. The problem is this. I heard from the association of the Federation of Filipino Bakers. They represent the community bakers. Ang problema kasi, while the big bakers are able to subsidize, we kind of set the market price at a certain price that is kind of like below their ideal price to make value adding or to make a profit. So now they're complaining that while government is not controlling price, the market is setting their own expectation. Example, kung ganda presyo ng gardenia, ng Barbie, kayo pa, ang liit nyo, dapat sumunod na kayo. That's the thing not okay with them, so to speak. Because ang iniisip ng tao, dapat 2 pesos and 35 cents lang. Hindi 2 pesos and 75 cents. Yun ang nagiging problema ngayon na hindi namin naisip noon.
So, paano nire-resolve yun?
Anong
Sinasabi ko naman kay Mr. Chito Chavez ng Federation, sabi ko naman, baliktad naman dapat. In other countries, anything artisanal would have a higher value adding.
Yes.
Di ba? Kasi sa amin, semi-mechanized or fully mechanized. Everything done like chop, 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 chop done. But sa panadero, one person is the one doing everything. It's like doing a piece of furniture. You cannot fit with assembly line, obviously. And the only key really is to make it more delicious. And that's the debate we have with Mr. Chavez and his group. Sabi ko, I can teach them all the secrets if they want. If I had a hot pandesal, I can very well sell at double the price and still sell the volume I want because people will get it at the right place, at the right time, with fantastic flavor and always steaming hot. Remember the pandesal of the 70s? Hot pandesal? It's so hot that people go for it.
But
The pandesal sells like hotcakes.
but the confidence na people will pay for it kahit pinasarap ko, mas mahal, pero people will come. But doesn't that assume that that's a higher demographic that you're still appealing to? I mean, the original question was, what about the neighborhood panaderia who are not really looking at it the same way and cannot afford the same things?
True, I agree with you, certainly. There will be casualties in the marketplace. Those that did not take care of their bakeries well. It's like a car, you have to maintain. Bakeries are like machineries, you have to maintain. But the moving parts in a bakery and a panaderia are 80% people. In a big bakery, 80% machinery. So yung 80% people, you have to oil them, you have to feed them, you have to pay them, you have to motivate them. So some neighborhood bakeries consider that as a given. Like, given na yan. So, walang product development. O, edi lagyan mo ng konting ubi powder, di maging ubi pandesal. Lagyan mo ng konting latak ng kape, edi maging mocha. Lagyan mo ng konting something powder, di ang maging matcha. So, ang daming pwede. So, if you were to do a portfolio, then you do not just pandesal, you do other things. And then it can contribute something or give a little bit of contribution margin to whatever fixed cost you do. So, this is a little bit complicated because in the neighborhood, it's just one product, pandesal. They don't even see because it's difficult to do a loaf bread in a tin mold, and the cost is so expensive. So yun yung problem ngayon.
Well, there's another suggestion. I know medyo mahirap, pero they're talking about wheat flour substitution daw with, yung mga pumpkin flour. I know, wala namang gluten yun pero what do you think of those suggestions?
Actually, meron na kaming gagawin Ready na kami with coconut pandesal.
Pero mahal siya, di ba?
Yung flour mahal, but the coconut flour producers decided to bring down the price to make the bakers try it and took on the challenge. Because when I met them as a group, I said, why will I use coconut flour when the price is 50 pesos, when at that time, the price of wheat flour was just 38 or 36 or 35. Kasi tumataas yan weekly, you know. Then they said, oh, sige, what is the price you want? I said, oh, sure, 34 maybe would be nice.
Yeah.
Then we settled at a price close to 40, which is just about the price of wheat flour. And you know, if the market accepts that, then wow, we're gonna save 10% of our wheat imports through substitution of cocoa flour.
So when kaya...
So did the market accept it?
Hindi, wala
I
pa.
like it. It's so good. It looks like
Oh.
bread. It feels like bread. It smells like bread. Tastes better than bread.
So when,
great.
kailan ang roll out? When ang roll out niyan?
Supposedly, launching namin is June 24. But everybody's asking, so I kind of leaked it na rin with the permission of DTI kasi siyempre, parang James Bond trailer mo konti. And I've been taking away samples. Don't forget, DOST was pushing us to use it. DOST under Secboy de la Peña and Yusek Guevara. So they've been asking us. Ako naman, I've tried that before. The problem lang with it, it's just too expensive.
Yeah.
Even let's say, even the other substitutes like root crop flours, like kamote, or whatever, they're more expensive than wheat. Wheat is grown commercially, and the Americans have found a way to make it really
Efficient, yeah. Production.
unlike amin. Like for example, we've had members who told us, yeah nga, we will make Nutriban with root kalabasa nga. Bigla ako may order, tapos mag-order ng kalabasa, sabihin sa akin, ay wala ang harvest. Oh my God. How will I fulfill my...
Oo nga.
Kasi
Yeah.
pa yung industry nasa infancy stage pa eh.
Yeah.
Unlike in did you know that do you know how they got to make cocoa flour? It's really interesting. I'll share the story with you if we have time.
Sige
So
po.
he told me it's either the animals get it or the humans get it. It's really cute. Oh really? Wow, swerte naman ng animals as a feed. So Philippines is known all over the world for our VCO, virgin coconut oil. So, both prices of virgin coconut oil, what remains would be the
Right.
tapal. So these are like the byproduct.
Yeah.
And then dry it, deodorize it, I don't know, maybe bleach or whatever, they process it, and then they crush into flour. It's that simple. And we've just had issues with micron size. We commented that it's not as fine as flour, so they improved it
smart.
and it worked. It's just like that.
Great.
Short.
Yeah. Sana nga.
Hindi kami naniniwalang masarap yan. Niniwala ka bang masarap yan?
Subukan natin.
Hindi ako niniwala dyan.
Test natin.
Gawin
Na.
natin
Ayan.
pudding para
Ayan.
matest.
Yun ang pakay ni Robby talaga.
Nagpaparinig lang yan, Mr. Kuwa. Padala
Hindi.
niyo raw.
Eto lang ay pandesal. Eh yung buko pie, mag-substitute ka ng cocoa flour. Pwede.
Naku, hindi ako
Yung
naniniwala
pulburon,
dyan.
pwede rin. Secret agent ng mga sauce, instead of wheat flour, cocoa flour, 100% pwede.
Ayun.
How about cookie? Apa, skyflakes.
Yes, Mr. Kowa, we're
Yeah.
almost out of time,
Oh, sorry.
but I do want to prompt this final question. Perfect na rin for what you've been discussing. As they always say, di ba? A good crisis is a terrible thing to waste. What are the opportunities that you think that we can seize in this time of crisis, anticipating better days, that can actually come out good and better for our industry and our country?
Well, first of all, suddenly, cocoa flour is made available at a price that is friendlier to us. So what's going to happen if all of us start using it? The cocoa flour industry will be born overnight from the VCO people. It's their challenge. It's their biggest advantage to turn these sapals or these cakes or these derivatives into some usable alternative. Secondly, the bakers will also benefit, as well as the consumers, because now, after we subject it to food analysis, the FNRI, the Nutrition Institute, tells us that, oh, guys, you're going to get 5 times more fiber. Did you know that? I said,
Wow.
oh, wow, why not? 5 times more fiber, same price. Sarap pa, wow. Sure, why not? Consumers benefit. Kami naman bakers. Remember, 10% is still 10%. How small, however little, if you're able to substitute 10%, it's just in our backyard. We're getting most of the stocks from Candelaria, Quezon, I was told, of the logistics. But a lot of stocks are from Gensan, from Century, makers of the same Century tuna. So that's why I'm excited. I'm excited only because in this crisis is the only time that we got all of these groups together and to find a common solution. When the crisis is over, wow, why not? If people like coconut pandesal, coconut AC, coconut pandelimon, why not? We're gonna do it in big time.
Okay.
Okay.
Ano nga?
Something
Yeah.
to look forward to. Matitingnan
We're
natin.
hoping.
Masubukan natin yan. Sige.
Subukan yan. Oo.
Yeah.
John Coa, maraming salamat po.
Thank you,
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Coa.
John Coa is president of the Philippine Baking Industry Group. And that will be all for this edition of The Chiefs. But we hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. Before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
I'm Mami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5.
I'm Ed Lingao, and we are One News.